Ladies and gentlemen, like I realize my videos are seen or carried to different people all over the place. That's cool. Now, Jill Lepore, sorry, my bad, Lepore, probably mispronounced her name. This was the lady that we talked about with the secret origins of Wonder Woman, right? She wrote that book. She comes back with a cultural comment and she says Wonder Woman's unwinnable war. Basically, she's responding to my video that I put out there a little bit before. And she makes this article, and she's basically saying that she's saying that Wonder Woman is not the answer. She's not the end point to the struggle, feminist struggle. Right? That's basically what she's saying, if I were to sum it up. And I don't see that as wrong, actually. I think she's right. I mean, Patty Jenkins said it. I mean, in the movie said it itself as well. But what I want to say is that a little summary down here, I think, is not being fair and honest to the Wonder Woman. And I think what I would say to her is this, that in every single war, there is a series of battles. And you go forward some steps, you go backward some steps. But at the end of the day, Wonder Woman is a tool that can be utilized to get to the masses, because the masses are not aware of the struggle like that. You know, the average person is not aware of this struggle like how she thinks of it. And I think a lot of times feminists don't realize that they need to connect. You have all this knowledge, yes, but you have to connect with the average person to actually influence a change. And it's not going to come by talking. It's not going to come by just putting out newspaper articles. It's going to come by demonstration. A man who walks a certain walk creates irrefutable evidence that it can be walked by him. So the greatest way to allow the movement to be successful is by actually illustrating it. And one of the ways to do so is to use pop culture, mass media, and get it out there, okay? And Wonder Woman is cleverly done. So let me go into some things. Now, in this article, maybe I should just cite it. So she comes here and she says, Jenkins sets her Wonder Woman in the First World War instead of the Second. In a way, this makes a certain chronological sense, since Marston's family's models were formidable women who fought for suffrage, which is voting, equal rights, birth control in the early 19th century. In 1911, when Marston was a Harvard freshman, he saw the British suffragist Emmeline Pankhurst address a crowd in Harvard Square. After she was banned from speaking in Harvard Yard, where women were not allowed to speak. You gotta understand, the times was different. And these women, I mean, they had a lot of courage, man. They had a lot of heart. In 1912, Elizabeth Holloway was a sophomore at Mount Holyoke, I think it is. Or Holyoke. I'm not too sure which one it is. And Elizabeth Holloway was a lover of, and a psychologist as well, of Marston. When students paraded for suffrage, wearing buttons that read "Votes for Women," H.G. Peter, an artist Marston hired to draw Wonder Woman, drew pro-suffrage cartoons for magazines. Marston took Wonder Woman's original story straight out of the Charlotte Pinkins Gilman's 1915 feminist utopia, Herland. In 1916, Olive Byrne's mother, Ethel Byrne, and her aunt, Margaret Sanger, opened the first birth control clinic in the United States. They are the founders of Planned Parenthood. In 1917, Marston was in Washington, D.C. when suffragists held a vigil outside the White House, carrying the signs that read, Mr. President, how long must we wait for liberty? And liberty was a woman, too. That's crazy. She says that the new Wonder Woman is set in an extravagantly staged and costumed 1918, driven by an uninteresting plot about the Kaiser and chemical weapons. The film renders invisible, erases, the fights women waged a century ago for representation, contraception, and equality. The real women who fought them call themselves Amazons, figures from myth. because not knowing much about the history of women, they had to imagine ancestors. Wonder Woman is their daughter. They made her out of clay. She owes them a debt that this movie does not pay. So let me just hit you with why I think she's wrong about this. She says that the movie erases women's fight for equality, contraception, and representation. Because in that time, as we all know, women were fighting for suffrage, and they were also fighting for equal pay and jobs and so on. Okay? And I've covered that in some other videos. But what this lady here does not understand is you don't literally put those things in such a movie. And that'll turn people off. And they'll say you're over politicizing. So what Patty Jenkins did, she didn't literally put it in, which would be dumb. You're dealing with pop culture. They don't care about those things, the masses. They don't really care because you have to make them care. And how do you make them care? You show it. So Patty Jenkins hinted to these things in this era by the clothing Wonder Woman wore, the clothing that Etta Candy wore. All right, versus the clothing and the apparel that the women of the day wore. She hinted to it in very nuanced and very clever ways in the environment, how men treated women, the attitude towards women, the fact that women couldn't go in certain places, in certain council meetings where there were only primarily men, etc., etc., etc. In other words, Patty Jenkins took the spirit of what these women fought for in that period of time, very powerful time in history, because as I said before, in the First World War, we know that women were running countries. Basically, they were the workforce. The men were predominantly out to war. 40-something% of the women were doing certain jobs, and etc., etc., etc. We know that women also fought in World War II and ran countries in World War II. This battle has been long. It has been tiresome. It has been arduous. Okay? But you don't win a battle by just putting forward history and just showing pieces of history inside of a movie just like that, which it would be fantastic if you could do it, but you have to think about the populace that is not aware of these things and don't care about them. So instead of making the movie a political one, she very cleverly put in the essence of what these women were fighting for in the movie, but staged it in tribute to them in the time frame when this struggle was going on. I believe Zack Snyder has something to do with this, because Zack Snyder has been pushing feminist issues in a number of his movies. And if you take the time to go watch Sucker Punch, as much as Zack Snyder is a man, he's influenced by his wife, and he's pretty knowledgeable. I'm not saying that his take on things is necessarily how women see things, but I do say he is a sympathist to them. All right, and he definitely is a feminist. Now, having said all of that, I think feminists continue to step on their own toes. This is my opinion. I am obviously not a woman, okay? And I obviously know very little about the struggle because I've never been part of that. I've been part of a minority and seen the struggle go on there, even though I was born free, okay? I was not born in a country where racial prejudice occurred. I was born in the Caribbean, so the subtle racial prejudice is there, of course, but the overt racial prejudice, I never had that in my life growing up. Having said that, anyway, so you have to understand that you have to move. This battle is a battle fought in small steps. You can't fight it in big steps. And I think the feminists, they're jumping the gun on themselves, not understanding, yes, you are fighting your battle on this front, but you got to let somebody else fight the battle on the other front. Y'all got to work together. And anybody who empathizes and sympathizes with you, you can educate them. But for those who don't sympathize and empathize with you because they don't know nothing, you got to introduce them. So I'm kind of sad. I feel sad that this article was even made, because such a person with such understanding and background like Jen Lepore, she should understand this is not a game that you play like checkers. This is chess. This is chess. The people who are right now in in areas of power, they're not just going to give it up. They're men. If you know and you understand and you empathize with the Amazons and you're distrustful of men, especially men with great power, because you know they are deliberately doing certain things, then you have to play chess. Okay? Now, I was glad that feminists are trying to lobby and so on. I know feminists get a bad rep. But some of them, again, they're not really feminists. They are more what we call female supremacists, right? And it's all good. Nobody's mad at you. Okay, we got white supremacists, we got black supremacists, we got female supremacists, we got male supremacists. Well, male supremacists are the default operation. So I can't truly say they're female supremacists because they've been oppressed for so long that the real people I should be looking at are the male supremacists. Because they have the power locks down, and yet they are trying to hold on to the reins of power and not allow anybody. They're disenfranchising people. Okay, if you tell me women should not be angry, they should be happy with the situation, how the world is going, and how far they've reached, I would say to them, shut the hell up. You're not a woman. You don't have to go through what these women go through every day, especially the very knowledgeable ones. Take, for instance, Jill Lepore. She's a very knowledgeable woman. So obviously, she sees so much shit go down in one day, you know what I'm saying? So I understand where she's coming from. Again, she's fighting this like a war. I understand. But I'm just saying, you take a popular comic book character, okay? You put her in an era where women had suffrage. Somebody doing their homework will see that and be able now to see what Patty Jenkins is doing on the D-Lo. You understand what I'm saying? She doing something. Because if she a woman, I know she got the finesse. I know she not going to come straight at you. No. Women never come straight at you. They come sideways. And she will come sideways. And she will put in things in tribute to that. And you do your little homework, you're going to understand what she was really saying in that movie. She's saying a lot more than meets the eye. Now, I'm not saying that's probably what she did. Maybe she did intend it that way. Maybe. But all I'm saying to Jill Lepore is, I hear you on this movie probably won't speak to the turmoil, the unrest that happened in that particular time, at that particular era. I hear Jill Lepore. But possibly, because I haven't seen the movie yet, possibly that has been alluded to and is being spoken of, but in metaphors, in a figure in this movie. I will look at it and I'll study it and I'll break it down. I'll bring out to the table what I see, because I know nothing appears as it seems all the time. So I get where Jill Lepore wants. She wanted it there in front of people's faces. Bam! You need to put that stuff in there. All right? But hey, maybe it's not in there like that. Maybe it's in there in another way. Remember, in any battle, it's not so much about trying to destroy the enemy. In any battle, it is about what motivates you to move onward. Because when your enemy is destroyed, what's next? See, the next step must be mapped out before you can move beyond the step you're at. That's just the way how the game plays. So if you become a queen at the end of the chessboard, what are you going to do with that queen? Now you won the game. You got checkmate. What's next? You got to have a plan after the checkmate. If you say you want a woman-dominated society, what happens after the society is dominated by a woman? That's what you got to ask yourself. And I think a lot of these movements, they don't ask themselves those questions. If you have men and women in the world, and you say, no, we need to flip the tables. We need to turn it around. Women need to be in charge of everything. Okay, fine. So women are in charge of everything. It goes for maybe two decades, 3 decades, maybe 4, even 5 decades. It runs like that. What do you realize after those 5 decades are finished? What do you find out? Well, they have found out this. Within a decade or so, they found out, oh wait, we still need men in society. Men's role in society is still important. As much as some feminists have given a utopian world where it's, led by women and so on. And we've had so many sci-fis and stuff like that where the world has been led by women, right? But what we found is there's a reason the world has men and women in it. And it wasn't that the world will supremely need to be led by men or supremely led by women. It can be a mixture of the two. That's balance. It's called equilibrium. But to get that balance, we know the tables have to turn first. And women need to have their time to lead the world. Just like how we had a black president of the United States running the country. And we will have a woman president of the United States if things work out and we get past Trump's era. We'll have a woman president of the United States. I was looking forward to that. Because I know women have a different way of leading. And they're more peaceable. You look at all the women leaders in the world today. Think about it now. None of them are thinking about waging war against another country. Not one of them. They're looking at the best interest for the people of their country, servicing them, making sure everyone is fine. And that's just a different mental attitude. Yes, women can be nasty against other women. And this is where I would say, even if you have your critiques and criticisms of your other women folk or sisters, what I would suggest to some women is, as you bring your critiques, you also applaud and respectfully understand the small step made forward. Because I think a lot of women, especially the intellectual ones, they're their sister's worst enemy. You cannot have a movement if all you think about is how this movement is going short. You must have long vision. You must have long foresight. And it's good that you know the information you know, but it must work for you. It must not work against you. But it's freedom of speech. Another woman put out a press paper about how Wonder Woman wasn't the UN ambassador to the United Nations. That's a bad look for women. Bad look for women. Because the average pop culture person is going to be saying, like, but they was disgruntled that that woman that they was lobbying for didn't become Secretary General. And now they're going to trash another woman. So what the hell? What was this about, really? They're going to look at it that way. You just cut you said, oh, I couldn't get the head, so I'm going to cut off my toe. Yeah, it's your toe. It's the least important thing, it seems. But at least you keep your toe, so you can walk with proper balance. This is a war. The last thing you want to do is be shooting down friendlies. But you got to see them as friendlies. You guys have a great one.